Now, some of these stocks will break out. This is starting to get a little more advanced now. We're going to get into some more advanced techniques here, and things that are going to take even more skill and more time to cultivate your eye and your skill for these. But what will happen is sometimes you'll get what we call a reset, a failure reset. There's two kinds of resets. There's a pivot reset and a base reset. We're going to first look at the pivot reset. So the pivot reset is when you set up a base. And one of the reasons why this stock in particular is, I would say near and dear to me, but it's a nightmare, because I was in this. I bought this perfectly, and then I got knocked out of it, and then it reset and just blasted off to the moon. I'll show you right here. So here's where I bought it. I got knocked out right over here, not right over here, but I got knocked out over here, and then my mistake wasn't getting knocked out. I stuck to my plan. I got stopped out, but then it tightened up. It got really, really tight. It reset, and boom, look at the breakout here. And it wasn't the greatest second day breakout, but you got the tennis ball action. It's acting pretty darn good. And this stock went up 90% in 26 days. So I was in it. I got knocked out, and my mistake was not getting back in on the reset. So you want to look sometimes, once you, and again, Dave, we talked about this before, where when we sell a stock, we don't necessarily just throw it away. We keep it on a list. I keep a list of all the stocks I sold, and I still watch them for a number of days, even weeks after. You do the same, right, Dave?
Yeah, because sometimes it might be a market correction that keeps the stock from continuing higher. It could be a number of things, but especially if a stock has the great fundamentals and a great setup, but it's just not ready, then you could come back to it weeks later or even months later.
Let me show you another failure reset. So here's another pivot failure reset where you form this pivot. And sometimes the pivots are in hindsight, you look and you go, that wasn't the best pivot. I was maybe stretching a bit there. It was a little sloppy. In this case here, you get the breakout, but then you get a close and way at the low, and you get a big reversal. And then the next day, boom, it comes in, takes out the low in the pivot. And this is pretty ominous action, but it comes right back and it retightens up, and then it breaks out from here. So a lot of people would get knocked out of this, and they would never even think about coming back into it because they were just hosed on it. So watch very carefully, because what will happen is a lot of times you'll have something that appears to be a decent pivot, but then it shakes you out, and then it resets, and the pattern actually improves. The VCP, it just took more time to form and to get that water out of the towel. All this is telling you is right here, there was still water in the towel. You need to get that water out of the towel. Once it was all the supply was wrung out, now the stock can break out and go freely. 254% in 7 months. See, that's a great move. See, that's the kind of velocity that's going to really give you, even if you got a piece of that, if you got 1/3 of that, a quarter of that, you got yourself a nice move in a very short period of time. Here's the same stock, okay? And this is what we just saw right here. Here's the breakout, squat, reset, recovery. Now, it's set up again. Once it broke out, it made a little move. It actually went through a big base. Now, in this instance, I'd be knocked out of this stock here, all right? You'd probably be knocked out too. Over here, it tries to break out, it squats, and it comes in the next day, but there's no violations there. Yes, it's not acting great, and we did not getting follow-through buying is not a violation. It's just not getting confirmation. Okay, so we didn't get the confirmation here, but a couple days it tightens up and just forms that pivot, holds the lows, and then boom, breaks out, and you get that recovery. And then look how nice and strong, right? So again, you might have come in it right here. You might have come into the stock right here as it started to move, and it didn't break out. This is not a sell signal here. These aren't violations. The thing I want to make sure you understand is that you go into a stock with a plan, and you've already determined what your risk is going to be. So you say, okay, I'm going to risk 5%, or I'm going to risk $1,000, and this is the price that I'm going to stop out on. The key is to wait until the stock proves you right or wrong. So you want to stick with that stop unless you see the violations start to pile up, and you really, and even in the beginning, you're going to need to be more mechanical at this. Dave, somebody who's just starting, I mean, we're really going advanced here, right? I mean, would you suggest that, maybe they just stick with the stop and not get too cute with, sort of, selling if they see a couple of violations? This is going to take time to get this type of discerning eye, right?
Yeah, and it's going to take a long time, and probably a lot of losses too, to get to the right look and to know exactly what that pattern should look like. I also suggest, if people are just starting out, to use a portion of the money they have allocated for stocks, because you're bound to make a lot of mistakes. And so maybe take 50% or 25% of your money and trade with that, invest with that, and put the others to the side until you really get this down and you start having some success.
Yeah, we're going to give you, pretty, 95, 98% of everything through this workshop. We're really laying it all on the table, but we're also laying on the table, a combined of, 90 years worth of experience. So this is very advanced. As much as we're breaking it down here and showing you all these examples and really quantifying it, to do it in real time, this is really advanced stuff. So you've got to start off with the basics and first learn how to make sure you're staying in those uptrends and locate those bases and buy through that pivot point. And then you're going to start, getting more of a discerning eye and have experience and understand what's normal, what's abnormal. We're giving you reference points, tools, things to watch for red flags and things to watch for green lights. But it's going to take a lot of experience to apply this in real time.
And Mark, one last thing going along with that is that you said, we give you just about everything you need, but the last key is to study your own losses, your own successes, because that's where it's all going to come together when you start seeing the patterns of where you're making mistakes. And if you can start cutting down on those mistakes, then your success will go up dramatically.
Right. And we're going to actually specifically show you how we do post-analysis, and we're going to go through some very unique ways of doing post-analysis and tell you exactly how to conduct that post-analysis and what to look for when you're looking at your results and your trades. I want to show you just a few more here, because these resets could manifest themselves in a lot of peculiar ways. But we're always looking for that tightness. We're always looking for that tightness on the right side. So you can see right here, we had a breakout attempt, and it was just wedging up the right side, kind of sloppy, and then it fails. It comes in for a number of days, and this would have knocked most people who are using tight stops and are risk adverse, would have probably knocked them out and got shaken out here. But then look, it really tightens up, and this reset, the stock looks so much better now. I mean, it really looks nice and tight. But you might have been over here trying the stock over here, and maybe you got a little sloppy there, and things were working, the market was taking off, so you bought it, you got knocked out, and now it improves. And now you see how nice the breakout is now. Now when it finally, the water gets out of the towel and you really get that tightness, and it's set up properly, now you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, looks like 8 good closes, almost every day up, but maybe, or 1. I mean, really just a nice, efficient move, very little pullbacks. You get some a tennis ball action right away. And again, you see how many days it takes here, and then wham, right back into new high ground. That's what you want to see. Here's another reset, chef. So you break out here, and again, you roll over, and now you reset a whole nother base. And this is just, sometimes again, you'll have where stock breaks out and the market rolls over. You have a correction in the market, and it causes the stock to come back in and maybe stop you out, undercut the low in the base, but then it resets. Or you might be in a bear market, a correction already, and you've taken a leg down, the stock breaks out, and then the market takes another leg down. And maybe sometimes the last legs are the real doozies, and that's where you get the real acceleration in selling. And a stock that tried to break out in maybe the first 1 or 2 up legs Now, when you get that exacerbation in selling, it just comes right in and then needs to reset. Now you get the reset and see again, look at when it's really ready. Look how efficient. Boom, 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 boom. Look at one. What do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, right? Nine days up here, 12 out of 13 days up total in this rally. And that's really super strong, super strong. This was Dick's Sporting Goods, and I traded this stock right here coming out of this this pattern right here. You actually had a nice little base here. So now this is really important, because if this stock had broken out here and moved above this high and this pivot, I would have bought it right there. Now, maybe I would have been stopped out. I don't know, or maybe it would have worked, but it didn't. It set up and then it failed. Then they had guidance was upped, and it had this gap on upside guidance. But now it doesn't have VCP characteristics, right? I had to wait. So there was some good news, if you will. And then now it went through and it tightened up. Now it got really, look how nice and tight here. Now you've really got that nice big base. You've got the shakeout. It shook out the low. You've got the demand coming right back up the right side. And you've got the tightening, and you've wrung out all that water out of the towel. The stock is ready to go. And this stock went up huge from here. It was a great, great winner. This was a stock that, Dave, you probably remember Elan back in the 1990, coming off the lows, going to the 1991 bull market. Here's a perfect example of what I was just talking about. You try to break out here and you go into new high ground. The market had actually topped right here. And from here to here was a bear market. So now, as you break out here, the market actually already came off, but was having a rally, a reaction rally, and then it sold off again into the final low, which was right here. The market bottomed right here. The Dow was down 25%. So that took the stock back down, and that made this base fail, which was a pretty crappy looking base to begin with. So this was faulty to begin with. But somebody might have fallen for this. I saw this stock as it came up the right side right here. See how nice it comes up real strong, and then it tightens up, and then look how tight it is right here on the right side. And that's the great. Look at the volume. Volume comes way down, and then boom, off to the races. And this is where we were going to war over in the Middle East. And on the announcement of war, the market broke out, and a bunch of stocks that were set up came ripping out of these bases. And you had just a nice launch out of off the launching pad there.
And see how many months that you had to wait. So let's say you bought it and it broke out and it failed on you and you sold it. Well, that's where you then put it into a watch list and you keep an eye on it every week. You look to see if it sets up. And look how long it took. It took from September until January for the whole thing to set up again. But then you had a great move after it came out of there. But that's where if something didn't work, just don't forget about it and say, I hate this stock. Sometimes you have to buy it twice or three times before it really makes that big move.
Yeah. In this case of Dick's, you had this setup here and it failed. And now you had the guidance, right? Sometimes you'll even have an earnings report and it'll run the stock back up. And the fundamentals, if the fundamentals are good and the stock's acting well, then your job is to wait for that optimal buy point. All right. The key is you want to make sure that the stock is what I call price ready. You could have the right stock, but not at the right time. And you want the right stock and the right time. That's the key, is to wait until the stock is price ready. Right here, it's price ready. Over here, okay, fundamentals may be coming in, and yes, it's got a lot going for it, but it hasn't gotten to that point where you're timing it where you're trying to be at that immediate profit. Okay, Baidu, another one, V-shaped base, all right, came up here, sloppy right side. This was totally looking failure prone from the beginning, then comes off here, has to reset, and now you're getting that nice right side build. And then you get the cheat area. Now you get the little handle here, and you get multiple buy points. Again, a failure turned into a nice base. These could actually, I've been studying these resets for so long that I've got so many different ways that I play them now. Some are even, kind of bizarre. I call them expert buys. When you get to some of these that I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you do, certainly in the beginning. But here's one that was with Spirit Airlines. I think, Dave, you and I were looking at this at the time. We were talking about this. It came out of this base. It came back in, and then it tightened up right here. And this was really, trading what I call very close to the danger point. After it came down like this and put in this little pivot, this low is really key, because if it just starts selling off from here, it's just all going to hell. So this really was just game time. It needed to either to go or punt, and it just came ripping out here. You got 5 days up, 10 out of 11 days up. Great breakout, but this was a reset. It originally came out here, then it came in, got below the 50. This would have almost certainly stopped you out, but then you see it tightens up and you get a little reset and you got a little low cheat setting up. That's why those low cheats, the cheats, they're so valuable, because you can apply them to reset. You can apply them in so many ways. And by having the low cheat, the cheat, and the handle, and even the pullback to the breakout after the breakout, you've got basically four floors that the elevator can stop on before it makes a trip to the 10th floor or the 20th floor or the 50th floor. You're trying to get in on floor maybe 2, 3, or 4, and then take a trip to a higher floor. You're not trying to buy in the basement or the first floor. So these give you, multiple chances to be able to get on a stock as it's coming out of a base. Here's another one where, again, you tighten up here, try to come out of this low cheat, have a quick shakeout, and then re-tighten. You see, there's so many, maybe you might even start noticing some, new ways, some new angles to play this after you've been doing this for a while. But there's a lot of ways that it can reset. The main thing is that you want the same characteristics. You want the VCP characteristics. You want that tightness on the right side. Having a shakeout below the low is perfectly normal, but all the same rules are going to apply. The only difference is that, it came out of a pivot prior and it failed. So we talked about what I guess I didn't clarify, and I should probably go back a little bit, is that when I originally started, I said we're going to talk about pivot failures and base failures. So I showed you the pivot failures, and I also showed you the base failures. I just didn't pinpoint it, that when we take out the low in the base that was previous setting up, that's a full base reset. So if you just take out the low in the pivot and then you reset, taking out the low in the pivot might take a lot less time, or will almost always take less time to reset than if you take out the low in the base, because now you've got more work to do. It's just like, if you were to have an injury, if you sprained your ankle, it would take you a number of days maybe to get back running or get back on the tennis court. But if you break your leg, it's going to take a lot more. So a pivot failure is like a sprained ankle. A base failure is a broken leg. And if you go into stage 4, you're in compound fracture, broken leg, broken femur. You're in really bad shape. It's going to take a long time to recover. So again, pivot failure versus base failure. Dave, we're going to wrap this up here today. Any closing comments here? We talked about pivot failures, base failures and pivot failures. We talked about the confirmations, the violations. We went through a lot of examples of these things. Any recap?
I would just say that, a lot of these stocks had very, very good fundamentals. And when they fail to break out and they have to reset, then just don't give up on them, especially if they have great earnings. Keep them on a watch list, because there are many times where you're going to go, oh, I lost money in that stock, I can't buy it again. But you just have to have an open mind. Just say, hey, look, my timing was wrong, or the market was wrong. And if it resets all over again, then you've got a brand new situation, and that's where you can get the real big move.
Yeah, I've had a number of big winners that I got stopped out 2-3 times in a row, and then I played it that third or fourth time, and it was a charm. And I just try to keep those losses, as small as possible, so I can come back. But yeah, what I do is when I'm stopped out of a name, I actually put it in a list I have of my sold stocks, and I look at those every day. I just keep watching them to see what happened, subsequent to me getting stopped. And a lot of times I got the name right. I was just a little early, and then it resets, or maybe it goes through, it actually improves because the fundamentals, they're not going to change in one day, unless maybe, today's the earnings report and there's a huge miss. But the fundamentals are, if they're in place, maybe it's just not the right time because of the market, or the stock just needs more time to, to consolidate. So I keep that list. All right. So we're going to wrap it up, and then we'll come back, and there's so much more to go over, but we are wrapping it up for the day, and we'll see you during the next session. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.